larger, yeah, this is one of our larger surveys, provides valuable information about the chemical use and such in California. So uh, appreciate everyone's attending and well, thank you for what you do for NAS and what you do for California agriculture.
Okay, can everybody see my slideshow?
Yep.
Okay, good. Welcome everybody to the Veg Chem Use Vegetable Grower Inquiry and ARMS Phase 2 Virtual Training School. My name is Jennifer Van Court. I'm the other Jennifer. I know you guys are all familiar with Jennifer Johnson on the survey side, and I'm Jennifer Van Court. My regular job is group leader in the estimate section, but I'm filling in for John as the deputy until the first week in January, since John's on a detail in headquarters. So being on the estimate side, most of the work I do is with the field enumerators for the OM surveys. So I'm excited to get to work with you all on other projects. So moving on to the agenda for today, we will have 3 speakers. Rosa and Ty are both survey section, and David is in the estimates group. We will start with Rosa. She'll go over the chem use. And since there's so many matches between chem use and the vegetable grower inquiry, we thought it would be a good idea to have David come. He is, as I mentioned, the estimate stat in charge of the vegetable grower inquiry, and he'll come and give a short presentation on that survey. And then the third speaker will be Ty, and he will go over ARMS2. Our plan is to have questions taken at the end of each presentation. So please wait to ask them, or if you want to type it in the chat during the presentation, that's fine, and then we'll wait and answer it afterwards. So with that, I will turn it over to Rosa.
Hi, am I able to share now, Jennifer?
I think so. Let me.
I submitted a request to do that.
Yes. Maybe try again.
Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen or no? Not yet.
Yeah.
Now I can just see you guys.
Okay, I think I have to click a second share.
There
There
it
you go.
is.
I can see it.
Alrighty. Awesome. Okay. So hello everyone, good morning. My name is Rosa Avila and I am the lead survey statistician of the Vegetable Chemical Use Survey. I would be your primary contact person regarding any questions on this project. I have been working on the chemical use surveys for about the last 3 years now. So here's a timeline for this project. On August 23rd, CAPI was made available to supervisors so that they could make their enumerator assignments. Then from September 2nd to September 6th, CAPI was available for testing. Then on September 10th, the YouTube collaboration videos were made available. And I forward that link to all supervisors. And I would expect everyone to have had a chance to go in and watch those videos prior to attending this meeting. Then on September 20th, that would have been last Friday, we were able to get the supervisor packages mailed out containing all the survey materials for this survey. And today we're having this Zoom training. Then data collection would be from October 1st to January 13th. If you do have the paper forms in front of you and you want to collect the data from an operation that you know has completed their harvest already and you want to collect that early, you can do that on paper, but you will not be able to submit it on CAPI until that's open on October 1st. Now, here's some information on the sample size and benchmarks for this project. The sample size is 647 records. That's very close to what we had last time for Veg Chem. Now, all of these records will be field enumerated only. None of them will be going to the calling center, and none of these will be available for COWI or online reporting. I do get some calls almost every year from enumerators asking if COWI is an option or questioning why it's not available for respondents. So I would expect all supervisors to let your enumerators know that this is one of those special surveys that it's field enumerated only. As far as any materials that respondents would have received, this time they didn't receive anything other than a survey postcard to make an announcement of this upcoming project. Regarding the largest coordination that we had with any other survey going on, it was with the vegetable PDI, where we have about 459 matches. But that survey would not be starting until November 1st. And David will be talking to you guys today with more information regarding that survey. And now the benchmarks for this project. Here we have some target dates, and I would highly recommend everyone to write these dates down on your calendars to make sure that they are on your radar at all times. And we do our best to reach those benchmarks on November 9th. November 29th, we would like to be 25% complete. By December 13th, we want to be 50% complete. January 3rd, we would like to be 75% complete and then be 100% complete by January 13th. Now, keep in mind that, yes, we will be having some other competing surveys that will come up towards the end of the years, large projects such as the December APS and the January cattle, then preparing for ARMS2. So in order to meet these benchmarks, in some cases, you would have to be trying to complete some of these reports earlier on during data collection. Now here's some survey admin information. The project code for this survey is 136, and everyone is allowed up to 4 hours of home study for this project. And the average interview time should be about 60 minutes to complete the interview. And for this survey, all of the reports, all those completed inaccessibles and refusals should be completed on paper and CAPI. So we need both paper and CAPI. And all of the paper forms should be mailed in to the Sacramento office, where I will be working with other staff members to help me sort these out and review them. And for all of these reports, we want to collect the pesticide ID for all records, even including refusals and inaccessibles whenever that's possible. And that's because the pesticide ID is the only way that I'm able to link the pesticide information to the specific report. And when we are doing data analysis, if we see that there's a crop where we don't have enough representation for the state or at the national level, then I could go back to some of these refusals and inaccessibles that do have a pesticide ID, that we could convert those to a completed report and in order to improve our coverage for that target crop. So that's the reason why we want to do our best to collect even for those that are inaccessibles and refusals. Regarding the California form, this year, 2024, we're not collecting, we do not include the fertilizer questions. That would be section C. And the California form does not include section D, which pertains to the pesticide data. That data is provided to us directly from the California EPA's Department of Pesticide Regulation. And the questionnaire itself is 10 pages long, and it does contain 2 additional pages, blank pages for notes. Now here's a list of the target crops for this year. You might have noticed already that compared to 2022, asparagus has been removed from the list of target crops, so keep that in mind. I am aware that the interviewer's manual includes some paragraphs where they talk about asparagus, and we did reach out to headquarters to get this updated on the manual, but it was too late for them to make any changes because it had already been published for printing. So just have that in mind, that asparagus is no longer part of the target crops, even if it shows on the interviewer's manual. So here we have the face page for the 2024 questionnaire. Each report will have its label, but compared to other years, the label does not contain the sequence number, the supervisor ID, or the enumerator ID. This was not something done on my preference or my option. That's the way that they were printed. But that information will be included on the acreage inserts. So the acreage inserts will have that information that we've had other years on labels. Then on the face page, please make sure to enter the start time of the interview. I do get every year, it happens. I do get reports where the start time is missing. There's no way for me to know how long the interview took. So make sure you give me that information by entering the start time and the face page of the report. And then also please verify that if the operation had any changes, and be mindful of the skip. If the operation had no changes, then we can go ahead and go to page 3. Otherwise, we would continue with the next section, which is a change in operator status. So that's on page 2 now. So if we do discover that we have a new operator, we would collect the information, the contact information, and then we have to decide whether or not this new operator is able to complete the survey interview with us. And in order for that to happen, both of these conditions have to be true. So the new operator should be able to report all chemical data for 2024. And the new operator should have not merged or combined the operation on the label with other vegetable acreage owned previously. So if they had land previously of vegetable acres and they combined those with this land that we had on the label, then we would not be able to collect that information from the new operator. And we would not be able to complete the interview. Then on page 3, we start with a screener question on whether or not the operation had any of the target crops during 2024. Now, keep in mind that all of these operations have previously been screened in the June surveys as having at least one of the target crops. And so if the respondent states that they don't have any of the target crops, then please provide a comment to us to explain why or what was the situation as far as the discrepancy. And go ahead and follow the skip instruction to the conclusion page. And now, if on question 2, they report as having a single operator, then skip to page 4. But if they reported as having any partners, then we will collect the information for the partners. Then we have the California screener page where we collect the operations pesticide ID. This is one of the most important pieces of information on the whole report. So as I mentioned before, even for refusals and inaccessibles, we want to try our best to collect the pesticide ID as possible. The ID may be a combination of both numbers and letters. And for all those operations with known IDs that we have saved in our database, you'll see them printed on the acreage inserts. They're located on the back of the inserts where you have the comments. It's on the leftmost column. You'll see the pesticide IDs listed. So when you're completing the interview, please make sure to verify that the IDs were still valid during 2024. Do not make the mistake of simply copying these IDs over into the report without verifying. Every year I get a lot of IDs where I enter them in the system and they're no longer valid. They do not contain any data. Therefore, I need to make sure that you're doing your best to verify these IDs as being valid for the crop year. And for IDs, later, once we collect the pesticide ID, we want to know whether or not the ID was shared with other operations. If that's the case, then we would collect the contact information for those other operations. Then we continue on question 6, asking whether or not the operation used multiple pesticide IDs. If that's the case, then we will collect the ID information. And then again, we want to ask whether or not any of these other IDs were shared with other operations. And if that's the case, we will collect the contact information for those. Then we move on to the land operated section. At the very top, please be mindful of the skip. If you're able to verify that the acreage on the acreage insert matches what the respondent is going to report, then we can just go ahead and enter a 1 and skip the remaining questions on section A. Now, something to note is that the acreage insert only references June 2024 survey data. So you may come across some large known operations that have vegetable acres and they have zeros across their acreage page, and that would be because they probably did not report to us in the June surveys. And so we would need to collect all of this information from them. Now, when collecting the acreage information, please make sure to collect all items. I do receive some reports where only the total acres are reported, and there's no way for me to know whether the land is either owned or rented. So please make sure that we're completing all parts of this section for these questions. Now, something else is that if the acreage that they are reporting is very different from what we have on the acreage insert, please provide a comment to us so that I know that that was something that you considered and verified with the operator. Maybe previously they misreported by including land from another operation or vice versa. So that's something that we want to comment provided for those large discrepancies. One last thing is that for question 4, regarding the vegetable acres, we want to make sure that we are including acres for both target and non-target vegetable crops on the operation. We then move on to the vegetable acreage table where we collect specific data on the target crops. So on column 1, we want to specify the name of the crop. On column 2, we want to write down and that would be reported to the nearest tenth of an acre. Then on column 4, we want to note whether or not the operation sprayed any pesticides on those acres for that crop. If yes, we enter a 1. If no, we enter a 3. Then on column 5, we enter the date of when they ended their harvest for the 2023 crop. And on column 6, we enter the date for when they ended their harvest for the 2024 crop. So here's an example of how that might look like. If an operation reports that they did not harvest one of their crops during one of those crop years, we will leave the item box blank. And I would like for you guys to provide me a comment to justify that. That way I know that it was not left blank by mistake. Also, the comment that you provide to me, I will go ahead and forward that to headquarters to approve the fact that we have that data missing. And let me go ahead and review one of these lines of data just for practice. So here we have on line 1, this operation has tomatoes and the crop code is 770. So we enter the code and they have 24.5 acres. So we enter the acres and they did apply pesticides on the tomatoes. So we enter a 1. Then they ended their harvest for the 2023 crop on September 1st. So we have the date, and then the 2024 crop was ended, the harvest was ended on September 15th. So we entered the date. Now here's a list of items that we want to include or exclude for the acreage table. I'll go over a couple of these. Some of the items that we want to make sure to include is all the vegetable acres, regardless of their usage. So if the vegetables are meant for processing or fresh, we would include the acres. And also regardless of the sales, if they're selling the vegetables on roadside stands, farmers markets, or U-Pick, we would also include these. Also, we want to include any of those crops that were planted in the fall of 2023 that were intended to be part of the 2024 crop. And we would include acres for those crops that were double cropped on the land. So if the land was used a second time for a different commodity, we would include the acres again for that other commodity that was harvested. So make sure that we're including all acres if the operation is double cropping. Then items that we want to exclude would be any vegetable acres that are grown in a greenhouse or grown as a home garden. We would not include those. Also, we want to make sure that we are excluding, I should state at the very top, that's very important. We would not include any out-of-state acres. And also, we do not want to include any non-target vegetables. Again, asparagus is no longer one of our target crops this year, so that would be one of those items that we would not include in the vegetable acres in the table. Now, other things to mention regarding this table would be that we do not want to collect data for any vegetable crops or acres for operations other than the target operation. So for those operators that have multiple operations, we only want to collect the data that's pertaining to the operation on the label only. Then again, we do not want to include any vegetable acres that are grown outside of California. And in those cases where the operator does not know the exact end date of their harvest, we could try to figure out which third of the month they ended their harvest. Say if they ended their harvest on the first 10 days of the month, we can go ahead and enter the 5th as the date. If they ended their harvest between the 11th and the 20th, then we could enter the 15th as the date. And if they ended their harvest from the 21st towards the end of the month, then we could go ahead and put down the 25th as the date. Then we go to page 7 where we have the California EPA site location numbers. Now, first thing to point out here is that you have to decide whether or not this information is required from the respondent. So in order for us to collect this information, it's necessary only if the operator uses multiple IDs or they share one of their IDs with another operation. So if none of these are the case, then we can go ahead and skip this page 7 regarding the site location numbers. Do not take the time from yourself and the respondent to complete this. It could be more time consuming. So have these skip items in mind. So what are site location numbers? So the EPA site location numbers are IDs assigned to physical field locations at the discretion of either the county ag commissioners or the growers. And the growers are required to process spray permits through the California ag commissioners for every pesticide that they desire to spray on any particular site ID. Therefore, this is the way that I'm able to separate pesticide information and assign the correct pesticide data to the specific report. Again, this should only be completed if they have multiple IDs or they share their IDs. In this example that I have on the screen, is an example where the operation has multiple site location numbers for their first crop. Therefore, they were not able to all fit into the first line. If you can see that on the table, they were not able to fit in on the first line. So we can just simply go ahead and cross off the numeral 02 and make that a 1 so that I know on my end that that should pertain to the first crop of the commodities. So that's an example of how you would do that. And then we move on to the pesticide management practices section. For this, make sure that we are including both target and non-target vegetable crops grown. And by pests, we mean insects, weeds, and diseases. Now, at the very beginning, the first 3 questions, please be mindful of the skip. If the operation did not apply any pesticides to any of their target crops, then we can go ahead and skip these first 3 questions and go to question 4. Then on question 4, we're asking about their scouting practices. So if on question 4, they respond as having some scouting, so either a 1 or a 2, then we should be completing question 7. Otherwise, if they report as not having any scouting or not doing any scouting, then we would enter a 3 and question 7 should be completely empty or completely skipped. I do receive some reports on my end almost every year where I have some partial data on question 7, even while the respondent reported a 3 on question 4. So I have to go in and remove that data. So just have that skip in mind when you're completing the interview. Then on the next page, we continue with the pest management practices. On question, something that I wanted to point out on these is that on question 8, regarding where we were asking regarding the operation having records of their activities and practices regarding weeds, insects, and diseases. When we say records, we mean those that are organized and can be referenced. We are not talking about notes that are jotted down on pieces of paper because those do not qualify as being records. And then we continue with other pest management practices. And then at the end of those lists of questions, we have a question on whether or not the operation used irrigation for the vegetable acres for 2024. So if they did irrigate, then remember to follow up with question 26A regarding if the irrigation practices were used to manage pests as well. Then something to have in mind is that this whole section regarding pest management practices could be skipped by the respondent. They could either refuse it or if they don't want to provide the information or they're too busy, we can simply enter a 1 for item code 500. That's highlighted at the very bottom on this page on this screen. So that would still consist of a completed report to us, and I can still use their data for during data analysis. So have that in mind that this is an option for you all if the respondent is too busy or not willing to provide this information. Just enter a 1 on that item code. Then we finally get to the conclusion now. So again, at the very top, please give me the end time for the interview. Again, there's no way for me to know or estimate the duration of your interview, and I want it to be as accurate as possible, so enter the end time. And then the final item here is that we want to note whether or not the operation referenced their records regarding pesticide data or information. And that's the end of the training for Veg Chem. And now we can move on to any questions.
There are a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
The first one is, what about vegetables grown only for seed?
I would have to look into that. I believe that should be excluded. That's not part of the vegetable acres that we want to include in the table. But I will verify that in the manual and get back to you all. But as far as I know right now, my answer would be no. That's something that we want to exclude.
Okay. Second question is from Jessica.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Jessica. Are you there, Jessica? Okay, well, maybe we'll come back to her in a minute. Third question, how would you enter time if interview was conducted over more than one meeting or phone call?
I would recommend aggregating the time spent. Um, you could write down, okay, the first time that we started the interview, it took 20 minutes, and then we had to pause and wait for a second interview time. And then just allot the time to that, and then you can just average that out. When I have missing information regarding the start time, I always put like 10 in the morning or 11 in the morning. So you could figure that out and just write it down. At the end of the day, what we're looking for is the duration of the interview. So as far as an exact start time, I really, it doesn't matter on our end. So just aggregate the duration and then put that as a start and end time.
Okay, Kim verified that seed is excluded. So thank you, Kim.
Awesome. Thank you.
Next question from Frank. What is an example of using irrigation for pest control?
That would be adding any chemicals or whatnot to the irrigation. So that's the manner that they apply any pest control through their irrigation. That's when I referenced that once, I remember that was the case.
Okay. And one more time, Jessica, are you able to chime in? We can always come back to you after the next presentation. Okay, we'll skip Jessica for now. So I think you have anything else, Rosa?
Okay. I think that would be all, but I'll be here until the end of everyone's presentations. I'll hang around, so if you have other questions that come up, feel free to ask away. Let me go ahead and stop sharing.
Hold on. So, Rosa, I got Jessica on the phone and she can't hear us, I don't think. So
Yeah, I can hear everything, but what it's telling me to do on my phone is not working. So these are my two questions. Well, first of all, you're asking about, it's called fertigation when they put the chemicals through the irrigation.
Yes.
Fertigation. And then if it's chemicals, it's called chemnation. And then that's how it goes through the water. So if someone uses those two terms, that's what that means. And then on the site IDs, if you have someone who has multiple crops, but they only have one ID, do you still not want us to write those down, or do you want them written down?
No.
No, I don't need, if they only have one ID and they're not sharing it on my end.
No. I'm sorry, site ID. So, like, I have beans on it, the first site ID on 01101, and then I put tomatoes on it later, and it's like 01101 again.
So it's double cropped?
Double crop, but the pesticide, the ID, the site ID is the same site ID. It's just changing the commodity.
Yes, that should work fine for me. I don't need the site ID because on my end the data is automatically separated by crop and site location number. So it's not assigning the site location to the specific crop. It's assigning every instance that they intended to spray, and it would go specific to that crop. So it separates that for me on my end.
So then if you're looking at it, let's say if it's a 10-acre site and they put 10 acres of one commodity, but then the second commodity is only 5 acres, you're looking through their PUR, and looking at which materials are going on what amount of acres then, Rosa?
Yes, it would separate if it's 10 acres for one and 5 acres for another, same site location number. On my end, it does that for me. It separates those two. It has the same site location ID, the site ID, same site ID, but it specifies how many acres and what crop and what pesticide.
Okay, so you're looking at the detailed report.
Yes. Yes. Every time the grower reaches out to the county ag commissioners to ask for permission to apply anything on any specific crop, it comes to us that way. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See,
so it specifies.
I can see that because I have a blanket on CalAg permits myself, so I can see when they're putting material on and how much and how many acres. So I didn't know if you're seeing that's how you're going through it also. So that's you there. I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks. You good?
Yep.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for Rosa? All right, I think we're ready to move on to David and the vegetable grower inquiry. So David, take it away.
Can you see my screen?
No, not yet.
Oh, here we go.
Yes, now we can.
Good.
Good.
Hello, I'm David Garcia, lead stat over the vegetable grower inquiry. This will be my third year, but my first year without Sarah, so bear with me. Want to go over some timeline. September 18th, Cappy supervisor review mode. October 7th, hopefully around there, earlier if possible. If I get the materials, I will mail out supervisor packets. And October 24th is mail date and Cowie opens. And November 15th to January 2nd is Cappy data collection window. And since it's so much later than Veg Chem, and there's a great deal of matches with vegetable chemical use, maybe you guys focus on Veg Chem non-matches if possible. And if you do collect those matches early for vegetable grower, the matches with Veg Chem, maybe collect them on paper until Cappy opens. And then please plan to have everything complete in Cappy by close of business on January 2nd. And here's a list of the target crops for this year. There have been a few changes, like in Veg Chem, asparagus was dropped this year, but we also added beets and kale as part of the target crop list. And next is a face page of California Vegetable Grower Inquiry, asking if this operation grew any vegetables, crops, melons, or herbs in 2024. And then the total acres that are planted for harvest in California for 2024. And this page is like a typical breakdown of what each target crop would look like. Asking for how many acres planted and harvested, and then production, and how much was produced for fresh market or seed, or to be sold for fresh market or seed or processing, and harvested but not sold. And there's usually about 2 crops per page. And there are two target crops on there that ask for the current year plus previous year's data every year. And this is an example of dry onions. But we also, sweet potatoes is also asked each year for current and previous year. And then some important notes, vegetables for seed need to be collected. Yields are usually much lower. And please make a note if it's grown for seed. And contracted vegetables should be included. And please include ornamental pumpkins. And that's it. It's a lot shorter than Rosa's.
Thank you, David. Does anybody have any questions? This one does include the seed. which I think is new. I think that's been in the last
Yes,
few years that we've been doing
correct.
that.
When will the forms be available on the Pacific Wire?
I will place those today.
Okay.
All right. Now here is a question. We have an operation or two that grow exotic flint and other non-sweet corns and make a variety of products out of it. I had trouble recording it the last time. I can't remember why. There's probably, I don't think there's an other section. I think it's only a list of the targeted crops,
Correct.
right,
Yeah.
David?
No, correct. No other section.
So you
But
wouldn't
Frank,
include.
Frank, if you run across that stuff though, feel free to make some notes in there, either on the questionnaire and Cappy too. So it'll help David out when it comes to looking at it. Notes are always beneficial.
Right.
Okay, any other questions about veg grower? All right, so now up next is Ty. We're switching to ARMS2.
Yep, that sounds good. Hi, Jennifer. Okay, let me take care of a few things. All right. Good morning. I don't know if you can see me. Okay.
Yes, we
I just
can.
have to
We can
adjust.
see you,
All
Ty.
right, perfect. Hi. Hi, good morning. Good morning, Kurt. Good morning, Jen. I wanted to first acknowledge really quick, Rosa and David, wonderful job on your presentation. So please give them a round of applause. We're going to roll into ARMS2 for this year's regional school. So we'll go over, the basics, the deadlines, and the materials and the highlights from the training videos. I wanted to review a few logistics really quick, and computer devices and microphones. Please keep it on mute throughout this presentation, and feel free to use the chat function. I'm completely okay with it. That's fine. But we'll follow up on the questions after the presentation. Can you see the outline slide? Just wondered about it.
Yes, we can.
Oh,
We
okay,
can.
perfect. Perfect. So we'll discuss the ARMS2 logistics, important days, training and survey materials, and then we'll take some time to review the key points of the ARMS2 video lecture, main important points. As for the ARMS2 commodity and materials, our focus this year will be durum wheat, which is a 8-page questionnaire. The materials include labeled and blank questionnaires. We have the respondent booklet for the wheat. We have nutrient, fertilizer supplement, pesticide supplement, screening supplement if we need to. The interviewer's manual is definitely an asset to have, as well as cassette form and the acreage insert. So this year we're focusing on durum wheat for sure. As for the acreage insert, as we can see, this is an example that you'll see in the supervisor packages. You can see the value of the wheat durum planted right here. You can also see the ARMS1 response codes, as well as the start and end date of the CAPI, as well as the supervisor ID. And you could also see the direction of where the field was planted More on this coming soon, and the bottom section will be the enumerator notes. I now would like to go over really important ARMS2 key days. So Tuesday, October 1st, the CAPI will open and data collection will begin. And we recommend that enumerators and supervisors finish CAPI entries by close of business by the 11th of December, because we're going to close CAPI on December the 12th. Originally, CAPI was supposed to remain open until December the 6th, so significantly less time. But as a region and as a team, we decided to extend that until Thursday, December the 12th. And also December the 12th is the last day to send paper questionnaires to the NOD, or the National Operations Division, not to the NPC like what we did with ARMS3. For our own, December 20th, 2024 is the final clean date for our team. The project code is 906. Sample size is 75 for ARMS2. More details coming up on the sample size and supervisor list. So as we can see, we have the supervisor list, we have the sample counts, and there's one supervisor in which the sample is to be determined based on recent changes by headquarters. But ARMS3 will definitely be significantly larger. In terms of the consent form, please don't forget this one. However, this would only need to be filled out in the case that there's a caretaker or management company taking care of the operation other than the owner and the operator. So it's only applicable for that situation. Now, we would like to review important key points of the ARMS2 survey from the video lectures you had the opportunity to watch. So here's the supplement and the phase page. So some important notes would be record the start times on the front page and the end time at the very last page of the questionnaire. One of the easier ways to do this is to estimate the total time of the interview, and you could put that in lieu of the start and the ending times. Also prepare the fertilizer and pesticide information, refer to your respondent booklet, include operation type, responder acres, and cropland acres. On the next slide, we have the example of what the screening supplement would look like. So here's the ARMS2 version of the screening supplement, and here's the front cover page. The label, my pointer, where my pointer is at, the label will be placed right here with more of the details. As for the screening supplement, I wanted to review this a little bit further, but it indicates that no crops were grown. If the operation didn't sell any agriculture products, let's say the operation didn't have more than 19 acres of idle cropland or more than 99 acres of pasture land, then we'll mark all these three questions no. Then we're going to fill out the information whether anyone is operating the land or not. And if there's someone operating the land, place their contact information right here in this yes box. However, if the operation is discovered to be like out of business or duplicated, make a note, and then our office will go back to the last page of the questionnaire and we'll handle the office use. So no worries about that. Let's move on to section A. If the acres are really different by more than 25%, provide a short note and pay particular attention to the type of target crop. The field selection is random, using 8 cardinal and intercardinal directions. We don't want to have the operation choose the field location because it's already been pre-selected for us. So some examples coming up. So our focus is on durum wheat. So in item code 49, we're going to put a 3, and then the number of acres of selected type of wheat, place the number of acres. What's the total number of fields? We're going to place it here. This step is particularly important because as supervisors and enumerators, you'll be making decisions on which parts of the field will be used for the remainder of this survey. And question 4 is particularly important because these cardinal and intercardinal directions have number values. So I'll walk through this really quick. So north will be 1, south will be 2, east is 3, west is 4, and then follow the other sequence numbers for the other intercardinal directions. We'll obviously choose that, but it indicates that let's say somebody's operation happens was pre-selected to be north, which is a 1, but a selected operation for durum wheat happens to not be there. What do we do about that? So we'll get to that in a moment. Of course, don't forget about the selected field and the number of acres of wheat this operation planted. So as mentioned before, this is the cardinal intercardinal directions and the fact that the field has been randomly selected. And in terms of how do we select a field, just like what we were talking about earlier, it means that the select field is the northernmost field of the operation. But let's say, as an example, what if we have a situation in which the operation was actually on the south end? So we're going to move clockwise, northeast, east, southeast, and south until we get to this point. So that's how we would work this. So where do we find the directional information? So it's printed on the questionnaire label, as well as the acreage insert. So I wanted to highlight something really quick about the acreage insert. So as you can see with the orange arrow, the directional number, this year they only provided the directional number as I'm circling with my pointer. So that's a 4, so that's a west. Last year they included more information about that. So we'll have to refer back to the questionnaire for the directional key. Here's some good news. So section B, we don't have to worry about it for this year. So a little bit less work. Let's move on to section C. So nutrient and fertilizer applications is what we're going to discuss next. So this is more of a yes or no question where nutrients and fertilizers applied. If not, we're going to move on to section D, which would be pesticides. If indeed nutrient and fertilizers were applied, we're going to include the number of nutrient and fertilizer applications that were made. I'd like to highlight the inclusion and the exclusion criteria. Obviously include nutrient and fertilizers and don't include like micronutrients and unprocessed manure, lime, and gypsum. I wanted to take a quick moment to highlight the nutrient and fertilizer reference from the respondent booklet. So we have the name of the nutrient fertilizer. We have the formulation, whether it's a dry or liquid. We have the percent active ingredients. So we have nitrogen, we have phosphorus, we have potassium and sulfur. More on this coming up pretty soon. Typically, the nutrient and fertilizer section is written with numbers and dashes. So 26, 5, and 10. So 26 is nitrogen, 5 is phosphorus, the 10 is the potassium. If the fourth number is present, that would be sulfur, or considered to be sulfur. So the numbers represent the percentage. So 26% nitrogen, 5% phosphorus, 10% potassium. The remainder 59% will be carrier material. So when it comes to fertilizer applications, we have two options. One of them being percent analysis, another one being pounds of actual nutrients. So percent analysis, it is indeed preferred usage of reporting the nutrient and fertilizer data that was reported from the operation. And pounds of actual nutrients coincidentally happened to be easier when it came to data edits last year. More on this coming soon. So when it comes to using percent analysis, so column 3 has to be completed, so the quantity applied per acre when it comes to percent analysis. And then column 4, we want to record this into pounds or gallons, depending on the formulation of the nutrient fertilizer product. As for the pounds of actual nutrients, just leave column 3 blank and then put in pounds of actual nutrients, code 19 on column 4. So that makes it a lot easier, actually. Let's actually work on an actual example of a percent analysis methods. Feel free to get out a scratch paper, calculator on your phone, whatever you have. We'll just work on this for like 1 minute. And then the question is 150 pounds of 24, 5, and 10. So 26% of nitrogen, 5% of phosphorus, and 10% of potassium. And actually, I'm not going to just leave it at that, but I'm going to give a big hint. And actually, I need everyone to do me a favor. Please type in a 1 if you want to work on this example for 1 minute, or number 2 for no, let's go straight to the answer. So type in a 1 or a 2. Please help me out. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, David. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Cornelia. Thank you, Kalaya. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, let's work on this together. Okay, so that sounds good. All right, cool. So the next steps would be I'll provide a hint, and let's work on this together. I'll give about, let's see, I'll look at the clock really quick. So I'll give until like 11:06 to work on it on our own, and then at 11:06-ish, I'll come back and we'll talk about it. So the next slide has a hint. So here we go. I'll give you like until 11:06. Okay, it's 11:06. Give me a type in a 1 in the chat if you're ready. Number 2 if you need more time. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm gonna put in an on-screen calculator. Can you see my calculator? Type in a 1 or 2. Thanks. Okay, cool. Let's walk through this together. So when it comes to out of 150 pounds, that'll be 26% of nitrogen. So we'll do 150 pounds times 0.26. So 26%. You can, for simplicity, you can do like 26 over 100 if you're going to do this, but 0.26. And then we get 39. So give me a 1 if you got 39. Okay, cool. All right, let's move on. So for phosphorus, we got 150 pounds times 0.05. Okay. So then we get like 7.5. If we round it up, that's going to be an 8. And then for the purposes of time, I'll just go through potassium really quick. So 150 times 10%, which is 0.1. All right, cool. So we got like 15 pounds. Nice. And then the remainder of that will be carrier material. So 26 plus 5 plus 10. We'll take that out, and then 59% is the remainder material, which we should be getting about 88.5 pounds. But the 88.5 pounds is not going to be like added into our purposes of the nutrient and the fertilizer items. Let's move on. Okay. Good job. Good job. So this is our answer. Good job. So I wanted to go back to the nutrient or fertilizer supplement really quick. This column here, that is the nitrogen codes for column 2, and we have like 8 options, all the way from anhydrous ammonia to ammonia sulfate, potassium nitrite. So we'll put it in here. In CAPI, there's a drop-down menu, so you can just drop down in CAPI system, and it can select the type of nitrogen used. Let's roll over to column 6 really quick. So the question of how was this applied? So broadcast, in-seed furrow, in irrigation water, foliar or directed spray. We got 8 different options. So place that number right here on paper form. In CAPI, there's a drop down as well. So we worked together on finding the answers to the pounds of actual nutrients. So how do we fill this out on the questionnaire? Let's work on this together. So we got 39 of nitrogen, we got 8 pounds of phosphate, and then 15 of potassium. And in this case, we reported actual pounds of actual nutrients. We leave the column 3 blank, and then we place a 19 on column 4. Obviously, columns 5, 6, and 7, we're going to fill out depending on what the operation reports to us or says to us. Let's move on to pesticide applications. We start with a yes or no question. And were any pesticides applied, like insecticides, herbicides, or biocontrols? If it's a yes, we put a 1. And we're going to go through a little bit more in depth. If it's a no, we'll move on to pest management questions. The inclusion and exclusion criteria include fungicide, herbicides, pretty much self-explanatory. Please don't include adjuvants. Adjuvants tend to be inactive materials. It depends, but if it's not a pesticide, don't include them. The pesticide supplement, I wanted to take a little bit of a moment to review this. There is the form, so that could be like liquid, that could be emulsifiable, it could be a dry. The class, this is more broad in definition of the pesticide. So that H happens to be herbicide, but it can be fungicide, it can be insecticide, it can be a desiccant, or other types. We have a product name, and importantly, we have the United States EPA number. So please refer to this pesticide supplement for matching with what the operation mentions. There are some situations in which new pesticide products come out, or there's pesticides that are not part of our pesticide supplement list. It happens. There's a form to fill out at the end of section D, and more coming soon on these specific details. I wanted to give a moment to give credit to Rosa. She provided these very good pesticide informational resources. One is actually a fertilizer lookup through the Agrium website, and then another one is through the United States Environmental Protection Agency's pesticide lookup database. So please refer to these resources as you go through your list of nutrients and fertilizers and pesticides. I wanted to take a moment to briefly review the first 8 columns of the table. So on the very left, there's the product name, and then we have the column 2, the particular codes from the respondent booklet. In CAPI, there's a drop-down menu, so there's you can auto-populate that with CAPI. In terms of column 3, we want to place dry or liquid depending on the pesticide formulation. And then the tank mix gets a little bit interesting because there are situations when operations like to mix different pesticides into a mix. And then if the particular pesticide happens to be part of a tank mix, then place that particular line number of the first product in the mix so the system can match that. In terms of column 5, when was it applied? So there's 4 options for that, before or after planting. Column 6 and 7, in terms of that, one or the other is fine, not both of them. So column 6, how much was applied per acre, or the total amount. Importantly, column number 8 happens to be the units. So what if the product happens to be like dry, we want like pounds, we want dry ounces and grams, whereas the liquid formulations, gallons, quarts, pints, liquid ounces will be the units that will be emphasized. Let's not forget about the other 4 columns. So how was the product applied? We have like 9 options, all the way from broadcast, directed spray to spot treatments. And then column 10 will be number of acres, how many times it was applied for 11. And the column 12 will be the who applied these pesticides. Like I mentioned moments ago, what if the pesticide's not listed? Here's an example of how we would fill this out at the end of section D. So we have, let's say it's the 6th pesticide that it's being used, and then we indicate what type of pesticide it is. So insecticide, the trade name and the United States EPA number, the form, and the company or the manufacturer of that pesticide. Some quick reminders about pesticides. So have the respondent booklet ready. Also, the website resources that have been provided in the presentation, knowing the differences between different types of treatments, and if there's pesticide products that just happens to not be included in the respondent booklet, place the details in the notes, and we'll take the time and effort to cross-match the information with what we have available in our USDA Statistics Service database. Let's move on to pest management. Finally, the last section. So these questions in pest management, they are overlapping to a certain degree with vegetable chem use survey. So I'm not going to go into extremely deep detail on these. Majority of them are yes and no questions. So it makes our lives a little easier. They ask about the pest management decisions and practices during the 2024 season. What they really mean by pests will be weeds, insects, diseases. These questions also ask if, like weather data, was used to make decisions, whether to make pesticide applications, whether biological pesticides were used. So just place 1 for yes, 3 for no. More yes and no questions, with particular focus on like if the selected field for durum wheat was scouted for the, insects, weeds, diseases. The more questions again, whether this wheat field was scouted for weeds, insects, or diseases. If it's a no, all three of these should be a 3. But if yes, there's other follow-up questions about infestation and who did majority of the scouting. Again, the field mapping and other types of manual forms of pest management is emphasized and highlighted also in this page. So like plow, remove, ground covers, no till and minimum till. Also, the last portions of the pest management questions include like beneficial organisms. So these questions will be like asking about if other types of organisms or different types of attractants and repellents, besides the use of pesticides, were they being used? Just a quick reminder. So these pest management practices, they're alternative to pesticides in protect the environment by preventing runoff of pesticides. There's a lot of skip codes, so it'll save you a lot of time. Let's run over to the conclusion section. We're almost at home run, almost there. So please record the ending time in cell 0005. So where I'm circling right now. For simplicity, you can also record the total time on the right side in hours and minutes. Make your best estimate, best guess. It's more of the time. If it's like total time, let's say you happen to have 2 separate conversations because we were not able to get through the questionnaire interview like all the way through the first time. In that case, just add the time from call number 1 and call number 2, and it should be okay. No problem. In terms of fertilizer or pesticide data, it's more of a yes or no. Did they use it? Yes or no. Same thing for pesticides. And then record the number of the fertilizer and pesticides recorded in our survey. Include the contact information. Don't forget the email, the phone, name, and also the day. CAPI and paper logistics. We really need to go over this because this is different from ARMS phase 3, like what we were doing earlier this year. So no major changes, but instead the completed questionnaires will be sent to the National Operations Division in Missouri, not the NPC. So to the best of your ability, please complete the questionnaire, paper form, and enter the data into CAPI. With regards to return labels, we will provide return labels, and please stay in contact and stay in communication with us so our office can send you the return labels. Some really important reminders. So our team uploaded the FPG routing form PCR file on Pacific Wire. This is important because I'll walk through each step of what's going to happen. Scenario 1. Let's say the questionnaires were completed on paper and in CAPI. We'll put a yes here. And then in terms of keying and scanning, if the questionnaire was completed in CAPI, we're going to only go for scanning only because we want to prevent what's called double keying in this situation. But in the case that the questionnaires were only completed on paper, none of the data was entered through CAPI system, we want the first option, keying and scanning, so that both tasks can be done. If there's FMG updates, there'll be no keying, but the questionnaire will be scanned. Here's our contact information. My office number, my email, my mobile just in case, as well as my co-team lead, Juan Albello, his contact information. And if both of us happen to not be available, Kurt Stock, our group leader, as well as the acting deputy field director, Jennifer Van Court, can be reached as well. Some sneak preview about ARMS2 before I close the presentation. The sample will come out by next week. So I should have more information about ARMS2, but for now, we're going to focus on ARMS2, but more details coming soon. And I anticipate a lot of work coming. Thank you so much for your time and familiarize, the terminology, the questionnaire, refer to the interviews manual if you can't, if you need additional guidance on the definition. And thank you so much for your time and attention. And I wanted to set aside some time for questions. I'll hand it back over to the group leaders.
Okay, thank you, Ty. Good job. Let's see. It looks like there's one comment in the chat from Frank. Some use ammonia to chase away vegetable chewing varmints, but it also provides nitrogen. It may be a way to avoid reporting. They also have a place that makes organic sulfur from animal waste and a silage making operation, and they don't report it. They report sulfur that comes from a commercial source, but it's the same thing. Maybe more for veg chem or fruit chem, but it's fascinating all the stuff they are doing in Western Sonoma County that don't fit into our surveys. So yes, thank you for that comment. And as Kurt mentioned earlier, if you come across something that doesn't fit in, just please put it in the comments so we know.
Question for Ty. The surveys that will be completed in ARMS2, will they then come out in ARMS3 to do the expense part of it?
Most likely, yes, but I'll be in contact with the survey administrator for both ARMS2 and 3, and I'll let you know about the specifics. And there will be a waterfall of samples in ARMS3 coming up.
Hey, Ty, I can give you a little bit more info on that. So yeah, if they do fill out an ARMS2, they will be in the ARMS3 sample as well. The only time that an ARMS2 will not be in ARMS3 is if it's a non-response, then it won't go to ARMS3. But if it is a complete for 2, you're going to see it in 3 as well.
So if we're asked the question by the operator, then we should be frank with them and tell them that we'll be contacting them for the ARMS3, which is basically the expenses.
Totally. Yep.
Hey,
Very good question.
Any other questions?
Yes, for today, since there's 3 different surveys, which code do we use for reporting on payroll?
I'll send an email to the group.
Okay.
I'll look and see. I'm guessing Veg Chem, but I don't know that for sure. So I'll let you guys know. Any other questions?
Okay, Jessica, hold on. Okay, Jessica has another question for Ty. Go ahead.
Okay, so is it for grain only on the durum, or is it silage also?
In terms of grain or silage, I need to get back to you on that.
Is there silage on durum?
Well, some occasionally, but I mean, a lot of people don't use durum anymore in our area. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, because all the people that I got chosen are all dairies, and the ones that I have are ones that don't like to participate, and the likelihood of them having, I know they don't have grain, it's silage, and that's why I need to find out if they're zeroed out or not.
I think they go ahead and harvest, the bales of wheat from it.
Well, no, it's silage. They don't, no, it's fermented. They put it under tarps, and then they feed it to their cattle.
I don't think they do in Durham.
Well,
that might be
so.
the winter wheat, Jessica.
All the people that I got chose in my sample are ones that don't like to participate, but I can go onto their pesticide and it'll tell me it's silage only. And that's why I'm asking about the question, is this for grain only? Previously it was for grain only when we did it back in, I don't know, 2014, 2015, 2016. I can't remember the last time that we had Durham. So that was my question. And then the other thing about Agrian, you can go on there for chemicals on that. That is not just for fertilizer. And then adjuvants, that's the sticking agent. But with and it'll tell you if it is, fungicide, pesticide, agent, agent, and everything else. The one you want to use because it's very detailed.
Yeah, I'll get back with you on that for sure. On the silage of the grain. And the only other thing I was going to say too is, let's keep in mind. So for ARMS 1, the way ARMS 1 or the entire ARMS works is, so we have an ARMS 1, and that's basically the screening phase, where it's looking at these different commodities of like the wheat, the items of interest that we need, and if a farmer is actually in business or out of business. But the way some of the things for ARMS 1 is working nowadays is that if we have some control data or some past reporting, then sometimes we don't always talk to them for phase 1. And so just keep that in mind. And then also, if we don't have enough good reports for, say, Durham wheat that reported for phase 1, then they might bring in some inaccessible records or some refusal records. And so you might run across some of the people that we really haven't talked to in phase 1. So they might not have the commodity for the phase 2 that we're looking for. And then like in Jessica's area, she has a lot of triticale, and some people got the triticale, or at least from past years, some of the triticale got mixed up with the Durham wheat. So just be aware.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
This is Rosa. I just want to provide a comment regarding Veg Chem. I will be posting the PowerPoint presentation to the Pacific Wire. Supervisors should have received hard copies of this PowerPoint presentation. But the one on the Pacific Wire, I'll be adding one more slide at the very end that will contain the Q&A responses that we had during this training.
Sounds good. Thank you, Rosa. I want to thank Rosa, Ty, and David for all their hard work. I know they worked really hard on the presentations, and it showed because they did a great job. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kurt.
I didn't do nothing. They did all the hard work.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, we will adjourn. And I'll send out an email with the project code for this. And Ty will follow up with Jessica about the Durham wheat question. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna sign off.
Could I just jump in real quick and ask a question?
Of course.
Up here in this area in the counties we have, in 20 years, I've never had a single farmer grow Durham wheat, and all of mine are Durham. So if I go out and I find out it's winter wheat red, do I continue with the whole survey?
Is Ty still here? I think the answer to that is no.
Okay, I'll wait for a more definitive. I'm gonna go to the county ag offices and ask first before I go out to the farmers.
Yeah, I think, but we used to do county estimates for durum wheat, and most of it was further south.
Yeah, it would be, I mean, I'm gonna say it's not possible, but it's just not a crop I've ever seen in 20 years. Okay, thank you.
So, and on that note, so if you do run across something that it screens out, those screen outs are actually technically completes for ARMS2. So those fellas will end up in phase 3 as well.
Perfect.
Just the only reason I tell you that, just so whenever you tell them that they screen out for phase 2 and they're like, hey, we're not going to talk to you anymore, then all of a sudden you come back for phase 3.
Ty, you have a comment?
Yeah, the headquarters survey administrator got back to me about the durum wheat question, and it is for both grain and silage purposes, not just one or the other. I might write a short note about it, or however that works. But yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Maybe you could update the slide for posting.
Yeah, sure. I'll update the slides.
Okay, great.
And Ty, it's only for durum wheat, right?
Correct. Durum wheat. Triple checked on it. No spring,
Okay,
no
cool.
winter wheat.
Thanks for checking so fast.
Yeah, it's quick. All right. Well, if nobody has any more comments, I think I'll stop the recording.